Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and when I first reviewed the iPhone XS Max, I reviewed it before the iPhone XR came out, and at the end of that review, I concluded that maybe most people should wait and see what the iPhone XR offered, and now that both have been on the market for a little while, I thought now would be a great time to go back and revisit the iPhone XS Max and see how it's doing in 2019. So the iPhone XS Max is basically a supersized version of the iPhone X. It has the same stainless steel sides, it has of course that same notch that was so controversial, although on the iPhone XS Max the notch does appear a little bit smaller. It's not that the notch has shrunk on this phone, it's just that the screen of the phone is overall bigger, so the notch on it does look smaller as well. At first glance, you might also think you're getting the same exact glass back as the iPhone X, but this glass back is actually a little bit stronger than that, and that's also the same case for the iPhone XR, which also has the same exact glass back as the iPhone X. Now, my channel isn't the type of channel to do a bunch of phone durability tests. I'm not going to take my phone and smash it against the ground and see how many drops it takes for it to break, but in day-to-day use, I did drop my iPhone XS Max once, and it came out completely unscathed, and it was a pretty heavy drop onto concrete, and it didn't have any scratches, didn't have any dents, didn't have any fractures in the glass back, so I was pretty impressed with the durability from that one drop. Overall, the design of the iPhone XS Max is just as premium as the last version of the iPhone X. This thing just looks really, really nice, especially with those stainless steel sides, the white glass back on the silver version. Every time I pick it up, every time I look at it, the way the light hits that stainless steel, it really does look like a piece of jewelry. So it does look very premium, does feel very expensive in the hands, and overall in the hands it does feel pretty good for being such a large phone. What's cool about the iPhone XS Max is that it's actually a little bit smaller than the iPhone 8 Plus or the other previous iPhone Plus versions. Although I do prefer the iPhone XR the way it feels in my hand, the iPhone XS Max does feel good, and it does feel surprisingly manageable for such a big phone. Now, what you're really getting with the iPhone XS Max is of course that big 6.5-inch OLED screen. And that big screen is kind of the exclusive feature of the iPhone XS Max. It doesn't really have any other exclusive features besides the bigger screen compared to the iPhone XS. The huge vibrant OLED screen has deep, vivid colors, but still maintains Apple's standard for impressive color accuracy and deep, inky blacks. So anything you do on this screen, like browsing the web, looking at photos, looks really nice and crisp on that OLED screen. If you're like me and you like playing Civilization 6 on your iPhone, you'll appreciate the extra real estate when you're scrolling around your map, when you're trying to tap certain objectives. I think where I really like this feature the most is when I'm watching video, just having a bigger screen to get immersed in video, especially with the addition of HDR video on the iPhone X and XS series. It looks really, really nice on this 6.5-inch screen. Typing on such a large display is also a joy to use. I find I type the most accurately on the bigger display of the Max. Now, while I overall enjoy the bigger screen of the iPhone XS Max, and I really do like the features I outlined before, there are two problems I had with the bigger screen phone. The first one is just a software thing, and that is the landscape mode on the iPhone XS Max. I believe the iPhone XR also has this as well, and those bigger screen phones in that landscape orientation, I really don't like the way the apps are optimized for it. I think Apple did a really bad job optimizing it for the iPhone XS Max, especially with the notch area. It just looks a little weird the way the windows are laid out. Having that extra column view, it just looks off to me, and I just don't really like the landscape experience. I really hope that they change some of the software in iOS 13 to really take advantage of the extra screen real estate you're getting with a bigger screen, especially in the landscape mode. Now, this next issue doesn't have anything to do with the software, but just that the screen itself, for some reason, my iPhone XS Max has scratched up a lot. This is probably the most scratched iPhone I've ever owned. And don't get me wrong, I've had hairline scratches on iPhones before, nothing really too bad that I would even really see it unless I held it at a certain light angle. But these scratches overall, I don't know, it just seems really bad to me. I don't know if there's anything to do with the coating or the way the glass is formulated, or maybe it's just having a bigger screen, having that extra screen real estate. It's more likely that maybe something's gonna go wrong with it. But on my iPhone X and even on my iPhone XR, I haven't had scratches as bad as on my iPhone XS Max. So 3D Touch on the iPhone XS Max is also kind of an exclusive feature compared to the iPhone XR, where they use haptic touch. And although haptic touch has come a long way since launch, now enabling you to use it in lock screen notifications and in some other areas and kind of redoing it a little bit, the iPhone XS Max with its 3D Touch is definitely a better user experience. Now, another area where the iPhone XS Max is supposed to be better than the iPhone XR is with the faster LTE band with that extra antenna on the bottom of the phone. Although the extra LTE band is supposed to ensure higher data speeds, I have been unable to notice the difference in day-to-day use. Where I need to give extra credit to Apple is the implementation of the wider stereo sound on the XS Max. Although the new iPhones have this feature, I find the stereo separation on the Max to be the most apparent. I can easily walk around my house listening to the inbuilt speakers, and it sounds impressive for its small size and does not distort at higher volumes. So one of the better features of the iPhone XS Max is in its battery life, which does get better battery life than the iPhone X or the regular sized iPhone XS. However, after using it over the couple of months I've had it, although the battery life is still good, I've had the experience of using the iPhone XR, which, as you probably know, has the best battery life out of any iPhone. So even though battery life on the XS Max was overall pretty good, and more often than not it got me throughout the day without any major issues, my iPhone XR always got me throughout the day and had plenty of battery life to spare. And that's partly why I got the smart battery case for the iPhone XS Max, which wasn't out when I reviewed the iPhone XS Max, and I'll put a link to where you can find that full review of the battery case. But overall, I like it for the extra battery life, and it makes the iPhone XS Max have an amazing battery life. But that's something where the iPhone XR, I wouldn't even really have to consider getting that smart battery case. Now, don't get me wrong, the XS Max isn't a bad battery. Like I said, it was better than the iPhone X, which I thought got pretty good battery life. But if you really, really care about battery life, if you're someone who uses their phone constantly or using apps that really drain your phone and you kind of don't have a solution, I'd really recommend checking out the iPhone XR. It really does have amazing battery life. So it's no secret that the iPhone XS Max and the iPhone XR have the same exact A12 chip inside of it. So any apps I use like Safari, Things, Bare Notes, Apollo, any kind of normal app I use definitely does not slow this phone down at all. Even the most intensive applications or games like Civilization 6 or Fortnite perform extremely well on the iPhone XS Max, enabling rich graphics and high frame rates. Performance on this phone is just really, really smooth for most of the time. There have been a few cases, like I mentioned in my iPhone XR review, where I would notice some slight hiccups, some slight stuttering, and it's not a consistent frame rate drop or anything like that. I really haven't noticed it all the time, but there have been a few instances where, say I'm swiping up to go into another app, I'll notice some lag or some hiccup. I think these slight stuttering, these slight hiccups have a lot to do with the extra resolution of the iPhone XS Max. That extra screen resolution is really the only area of difference I can think between the iPhone XS Max and the iPhone XR, is why I think sometimes the iPhone XS Max is struggling a little bit. Again, it really doesn't happen all that often, but I have noticed it in a few instances. Moving on to the camera, the XS Max does not disappoint. Apple's new Smart HDR software paired with good optics makes the Max take some incredible pictures in most situations. The most impressive being in areas with challenging, harsh lighting. Smart HDR allows the camera to keep an even exposure by merging all these different frames together. But I also have to point out that this wide-angle lens on the iPhone XS Max is the same wide-angle lens on the iPhone XR, so both phones really do take the same exact picture when you're using that single lens system. What's different about the iPhone XS Max is the inclusion of this second lens over here. Now, the immediate effect of having that second lens on the XS Max is enabling the zoom feature. So you get a native 2x zoom on the iPhone XS Max, where the iPhone XR can only do digital zoom. Having that second zoom means you can take a picture when you're farther away and still preserve a lot of the detail that you would miss by digital zooming into the picture. It works better the more light you have, considering you have a more closed aperture with it, but if you are out in a situation where you do have good lighting, you can get photos from a farther distance without having to go close up. Say you're taking a photo of things like farther away, like a building, or even an animal that might run away. As you get closer, you can get some really nice results from that. Although, don't think this 2x zoom is going to be a magic zoom that will enable you to get some really close-up pictures. Like, for example, when the Blood Moon came out, I thought, okay, let's test the 2x zoom on it, and you can see here the results just don't look good at all. I think the zoom lens on the iPhone XS Max is most advantageous to me for its portrait mode. So unlike the iPhone XR, which in the stock camera app can only take portraits of people, the iPhone XS Max can do portrait modes of people, pets, or objects. So it's really nice that, especially in the stock camera app, you are able to capture a portrait mode of anything you want. I also think the bokeh effect overall looks better with the second lens implementation on the iPhone XS Max as opposed to the iPhone XR. Another advantage to the iPhone XS Max is that you can do the portrait stage lighting mode effects. The stage lighting mode effects aren't perfect, but I do find them impressive when they work, and it's a feature I did miss having on the iPhone XR. Now, there's really only one issue I have with the iPhone XS Max's portrait mode, and that is the ability not to do a wide-angle portrait mode like you can with the iPhone XR. Now, with the iPhone XR, this is all done through a software implementation, and there's really no reason why the XS Max shouldn't be able to use the wide-angle lens to take a portrait mode of people, especially because the wide-angle lens has a wider aperture on the iPhone XS Max and on the iPhone XR compared to the zoom lens. So if you're in an area with less lighting, I actually find that the iPhone XR takes a portrait mode that's more pleasing to my eye, and I would really love for the iPhone XS Max to be updated via software to enable the wide angle lens to take a portrait mode, especially if you want to get a wider angle field of view, or again, if you're in a lower lighting situation, sometimes the portrait mode can look better. Okay, so is the iPhone XS Max at this point in 2019 still worth it with that really high price tag? The model I have is the 256 gigabytes, and that retails for $1,249. And I really think it depends on the type of person you are. There are a few key features that might make the XS Max worth buying over the iPhone XR. And I think it only makes sense for people who are looking for the few key features I mentioned here, which is a bigger screen, an OLED screen as opposed to an LCD screen, and a second camera. So if you want the biggest screen possible, if you want the deep blacks that are found on an OLED screen, and you want that second camera for zooming, you want that portrait mode for objects and people, and you want that stage lighting effect. Now, if you care about those features I just outlined, I still think the iPhone XS Max is still a great phone, and it's still a phone that you're really going to appreciate using. However, if you don't think those features are really important for you, or if those features aren't worth the extra cost of going from the iPhone XR to the iPhone XS Max, then I'd probably have to say you should save your money and go with an iPhone XR over the iPhone XS Max. Now, don't get me wrong, I really do still like the XS Max. It's just that for most people, I don't think it's worth the additional cost of the iPhone XR. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you love your iPhone XS Max? Do you plan on picking one up in 2019? Or do you plan on going for the iPhone XR? As always, guys, if you like the video, make sure you give me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, make sure you're subscribed. If you want to support the channel anyway, like buying some shirts from my merchandise store, make sure you check out all the links in the video description. And as always, I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.